stuff that we're seeing out here. I've got to be really very careful because, I don't, that guy's backing up right there. You're seeing what we're seeing right there and how this is going down. There may have been just a shot fired just now. It looks like they're definitely saying shots fired. The rear window of that Prius, so the officers returning fire right now to that vehicle. Now this is a pursuit. I was going to say he's wanted for shooting at officers earlier. If we don't know earlier in the pursuit or just earlier period. But there's some more shots being fired right there. We're just going to stay as wide as we can, but I have a feeling that this is going to be coming to an end here in the Vernon area. This is going to be on Downey Boulevard. Pursuit. The driver seems to be giving up, but the passenger definitely had a weapon earlier on. A lot of shots were being fired. We definitely know that Prius was hit a couple of times. We saw some windows break open. No officers needing help at this time, but the driver clearly trying to get out or truly trying to surrender. But that passenger with that weapon, that's going to be the point of interest right now for the officers.
Just unbelievably scary. We see a number of officers out of their vehicles. Again, if you're just joining us, this looks to be the end of a pursuit with a passenger in a black Prius firing a gun out of the car. You can see it in that video on the right side of our screen. The gun, as he hangs out that window there, a number of innocent people, civilians in their vehicles around him as well. You can see that truck just right up beside him, that pickup truck.
The car moving. This is one of those ones, the car's starting to move right now. I don't know if this is just the driver maybe losing consciousness and that vehicle starting to roll. There was so many shots being fired earlier on. We know that the driver, there you go, you can see the driver's hands out the window again. I'm not sure why that vehicle started rolling right there. So the driver seems to be, let's just say, still alive. And the passenger, not sure, because there were so many shots being fired. We saw the shots going through that vehicle, clearly from a distance. We're trying to stay wide. I'm looking for some advice from our management on how close I can get with the camera, but still waiting. And I'm getting the stay wide. So there you go. You've got the driver of the vehicle getting out right now. It appears to be female. She seems to be female walking around clearly in shock. I can't imagine why she would not be. We don't see any blood on her. So hopefully, possibly only the passenger being hit by gunfire, but that definitely was enticed by that passenger inside that vehicle. The original shots that we saw being fired were from the passenger. There you go. You have the driver of this vehicle walking back right now, going into custody. Definitely. You can clearly see a lot of blood on her. I don't think that's from her. That's probably from the passenger. But that passenger this afternoon, we saw it live, shooting out that window continuously at officers, and then officers just forced to return fire. And now you can see that situation. They are going to be very, very cautious. People might be saying, why aren't they calling an ambulance? Why aren't they trying to rescue that person? They don't know if that person is still conscious. They don't know the condition, but they do know that this passenger clearly was shooting at officers earlier on, and this is how it came to an end. Here we're at the corner of Bandini and Downey. We're in the city of Vernon right now. And you've had this was a pursuit that started in the Downey area. We understand some sheriff's units there joining the chase, and possibly some California Highway Patrol. But right now, the driver in custody, that passenger that was shooting at officers earlier on, now I'm just saying unable to return fire. And you can see the situation, and this is going to be one of those ones where until they know she's covered in blood. She's right there.
So the middle.
You can see her there, clearly in shock and upset. I can't see how she wouldn't be. But this is a violent ending to a pursuit. But we watched it live here on from the helicopter, and all the aggression was from that vehicle. Shots were being fired from that vehicle at officers with other civilians in the area. Officers, not sure if it was the sheriff's department or Downey, but officers, law enforcement, returning fire, hitting that vehicle several times. The gunfire from the passenger side stopped, and that's the driver you see right there. Was trying to surrender very quickly after those shots were fired. Now she is out of the vehicle, but you can see law enforcement very careful right now. They are not going to approach that vehicle until they know that the hazard of danger to the officer is been cleared. Very dramatic. Very what a sad ending.
Yeah, just a crazy, chaotic scene, Stu. So again, this pursuit started in Downey. Look at the picture on the right side of your screen. The passenger in that black Prius being driven by a woman shooting out the passenger side window at police as they pursued this vehicle. It all came to a stop just moments ago. Bandini Boulevard and Downey in Vernon. And that's where Stu is overhead right now. And Stu, we're purposely keeping this shot from the helicopter pretty far away because we're not sure what officers are going to find when they eventually approach that vehicle.
Well, I'm pretty sure what they're going to find is that suspect probably has passed away from those from the wounds. The officer from the returning. You have to be very clear about this returning fire to that to that vehicle. That vehicle clearly starting the shots fired. Earlier on, when this chase was still going, they were talking about officer safety. That's the deputies and also police officers. That's the difference between the Downey PD and the sheriff's department. They were announcing officer safety issues, meaning that this person had been involved in some sort of shots fired at officers earlier today. Now, when they say earlier, we don't know if this was in a situation hours ago or a situation when this pursuit started. But that was the origin. They were definitely giving the officers that were chasing this vehicle heads up that there were shots being fired. So when we arrived here, I was shocked to see that passenger clearly hanging out of the side window, firing that gun just randomly. And you know, the thing is he, you know, was shooting back towards the vehicles behind him, but there were so many civilians out there. And then when he got to this intersection here, this is like we've been saying, this is on Bandini, right before Downey Boulevard. There was a lot of traffic. They were blocked in. And when those first officers were arriving there on scene, of course, that passenger out that window again, shooting at the officers. It did appear that at least one officer's vehicle was struck by gunfire. And then the next thing after that was obviously officers returning fire, and then the shots stopped. The civilian vehicles were able to get out of the area, and then you saw you saw hands coming out from the driver's side. The driver surrendering, then the car rolling a little bit farther to where you see it right there, and then that driver getting out. Right now, officers and deputies are going to be waiting. I'm sure an ambulance has been called to this scene, but they are going to be very cautious about approaching that vehicle. If that suspect is still conscious, in the past he's used that weapon against officers, and it might actually happen again. So right now they're just being very cautious. It's kind of a standoff type of situation. But right now, they're just waiting to see what that passenger does.
Yeah, understandably so that they're being hesitant and staying back there, Stu. This is a person who did not hesitate to fire at them. And, Stu, this guy shot the gun a number of times, too. It wasn't just one or two times.
Yes, a number of times for sure. And so many times when it was traffic on the road. There were other vehicles. At the end, he was stuck in traffic. But earlier on, when we saw him get off the 710, and I believe that was Atlantic when he was getting off there, so many shots being fired, and just there was so much other traffic. I'm still hopeful. We haven't heard anything. Still hopeful. Nobody else was struck, or even vehicles were struck. It was just random gunfire out the back of that Prius, and yes, you can see what happened out here. The officers' hands definitely being, you know. They were forced to return fire.
And Stu, so the protocol now, will they bring in a canine unit or will they just simply wait and move closer?
Well, officer safety is the number one priority. The helicopter, the sheriff's helicopter, definitely trying to see if there's movement inside that vehicle. They've asked others, they've asked us, but we will not push in because we are live right now. So they are going to wait and see if there's any movement inside that vehicle, and then they will approach. But an ambulance, I'm just going way wide to see if there's an ambulance here yet, but I'm sure one has been called. And it gives you an idea. This is just some traffic that's out here on Bandini this afternoon. There was so much more traffic. And earlier on, when those original shots were being fired, there was actually a civilian vehicle right behind that Prius. I can't imagine what that person was thinking, just seeing all that happening so close to them. Those shots being fired, that officer's vehicle being struck, and then, of course, the officers returning fire, striking that Prius several times.
Again,
So now, what's cooler, the robot or the drone? What do I stay with? Yeah, because the robot, I was going to say the robot's actually making a move. Oh, well, he's got stuck. Yeah, I was just going to say, you've got it upside down, buddy. I don't know, is it? If he did, he made a run. Oh, wait, these guys are definitely moving. Let's follow them. Oh, there's a robot. He stopped again. Yep, there he goes. There he goes. I wonder if they're like the drone guys versus the robot guys. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got there first. We're gonna open the door. We're gonna look inside. You guys, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, and then these guys are like, they're doing it. We're gonna do it the old-fashioned way. There you go. There you go. That's exactly what I thought they were gonna do. And then the driver's just gonna look in there and be like, yeah, this guy's dead. This guy's done. No, you know what? I really like this because you can't see the passenger. Yeah, you can see the driver and the other one looking out the window right now. Oh, they're starting a leash for the dog. They know that guy's dead. They're not going to send the dog in if... Or maybe not. Oh, look, there's the arresting officer. He's got his gloves on and the cuffs. Well, you know what? That's a good sign. That shows that this... Hey, what's happening? Perfect. Oh. It's great. It's all good. Oh. Okay. Come on, Dave. I've got a list of questions. Seriously, we're going to show tape, right? So if I'm doing the whole thing, are we doing like clips of the actual pursuit and the shots being fired and all that? Okay. 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 Okay, awesome. Thank you. The robot's taking cover. The robot's like, yeah, I'm not going over there. Hey. I looked. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, the liquor store robbery. The liquor store robbery in Downey. Yeah, okay. All right. All right, I'm closing all my 106 windows that were open, and let me redo the mail. If not, I'm going to call the desk right now. Oh, there we go. Paul Button tapes. Tape, tape, tape.
More right now. Negotiate between deputies to see if the suspect can talk to them.
Yeah. It's so hard to make out.
Yeah, it really is.
Being inside that vehicle. At one point, you could see that suspect. Did you remember seeing? You could see the suspect's face, like it was just looked like they were sleeping almost, turned to the side and looking out their window.
It's really hard to see inside there.
I hope there's nobody in that back seat, though, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a very good
No. So
situation.
Chris?
Yeah, I certainly hope so, you know, for obvious reasons. One thing that we can show you to kind of give you a comparison of the suspect who was leaning out of the window shooting at officers, we now have some video and some freeze frames from the surveillance video of that homicide in Downey just a few nights ago that we could pop up there, and you can kind of see the similarities between those two, and obviously the size and description of the weapon used looks very similar. Just from a cursory glance at both of these shots here. So obviously law enforcement looking at that same evidence and trying to figure out, again, what the connection is and whether the evidence is stacking up or pointing into the direction of the possibility that this, again, may be the same suspect involved in that liquor store robbery. So I think it's very interesting when we look at it now that we've pulled around the driver's side of that Prius. The posture amongst those SEB units right here really has not changed. They're still remaining inside the vehicle there. They're not making any moves, and you have to wonder what they're seeing that's preventing them from taking their next steps. Obviously, they're communicating with other commanders back at the command post and relaying information as to what they're seeing or hearing on the scene down there and strategizing what that next move is going to be here. But when you look at the situation, you've got to imagine that they see something that is still very much of concern, whether it's a threat coming from that suspect, whether he's moving around, or whether they're just taking their time and taking every last precaution to make sure when they do make their move that they are not in danger in doing so, because at some point they're going to have to open up that either the passenger door or go through the driver's side and physically remove either a live suspect or a dead suspect. One way or the other is going to have to come out of that vehicle.
Exactly, and it's interesting to see that video from Tuesday night, and we have a freeze frame of this particular suspect in the car with his head out the window and shooting at officers, and you could sort of see
she's doubled over,
and then
but
the,
it looks
and then
like
the,
she's
the gun.
bloody.
The gun looks
at some
like
point
similar.
because
It's
during
very
this
similar to the gun
during this
when you
pursuit.
see,
all
yeah.
guns
What
now
was that?
drawn at not
Let's
just
get Bruce
this woman,
back
but
in
at
here.
the car
Bruce,
as
what are
well.
they doing?
Again, we're also
It looks
hearing
like
that this
they're applying
possibly
some sort
could
of
be
diversionary device
a murder suspect.
to see if they can get the
A suspect
to
wanted
react
in
some way.
a murder that
Maybe
happened
some sort of
in the
concussion
city of
grenade.
Downey, waiting to
It
confirm
looks
that.
like they're
But the
intended
end of a
to deploy
pursuit
the
here
canine
on South
on a
Atlantic
long
Boulevard in
and have the
Bandini
canine go
in the
in
city
there
of Vernon.
to deal with a shot, maybe a Magnum revolver of some sort. And so if he fired all six, he may be out of rounds, but it looks like they're going to deploy the canine to bring this to a resolute.
Wow, look at that dog, and I would not want that dog after me.
I know, but you hope that
Yeah,
that
once,
doesn't have a
once the
gun.
dog
I
gets
know.
out of the
Oh,
car,
please.
work time. And this dog is fully in work mode right now.
Yeah, and Bruce, though, just out of curiosity, because we do have animal lovers who are watching. That suspect is armed. Obviously, we saw them as they are a murder suspect as well, possible. And we saw the video of maybe what they're accused of doing, and we saw with our own eyes what the suspect did with the gun during the chase. It seems like, sending in that dog is just It can't be taken very lightly, that decision.
No, but you got to remember the dog is a tool, and unfortunately, the dog's life is secondary to that of a trained police officer. The dogs also do have some sort of bulletproof protective vest on also.
Yes.
So sending the dog in is not taken lightly as a member of the law enforcement family.
Yeah, and we apologize for a little bit of a line problem with the phone, but we understand what you're saying. We're going to go to Chris, and Chris, there you see that canine on standby there with that long leash. What else you see?
I would imagine, as Bruce was saying, that tear gas or whatever chemical was used in that situation as a diversionary tactic, purely to see how the suspect reacts. At this point, they want to see does it affect his movement? What is his reflex? What's his reaction to that? To see to try and prompt some movement. And then the next step, once that dust settles, if you will, we have watched them leash up that canine in the last few minutes. We actually watched as that was happening. You can see that's got to be about a 40-foot, maybe 30-foot leash that they will. Once they're comfortable, they will let the dog approach the vehicle, and that'll be the next step. And at some point, the determination will be made that the suspect is either he's alive or he's dead. That's the next step, I think.
Yeah, because if you don't flinch when that dog comes at you, then you're incapacitated. Because
right, exactly.
That's
I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, sometimes they use the tear gas and they'll deploy that, and then they'll immediately rush in and take out a suspect, whether it's in a structure or even in a car. But in this case, they deployed it, and now the situation once again is static. So now that was step one. We'll see what Plan B is. I would imagine here in the next couple of minutes.
Right, it'll be very interesting to see what happens when that dog approaches the vehicle, and then perhaps they can ascertain if he's going to be a suspect that they can just drag out of that car, or if they're going to have to continue the standoff situation.
Yes, absolutely, and you can see that canine very anxious. We saw it once that tear gas or canister went off. The dog became very animated and very anxious to do what he's trained to do. You know, as Bruce mentioned, these are not pets by any means. And as you know, Colleen, the capabilities of that dog right there is really something. When you look at the training that those dogs go through and the things that they are able to train them to do are nothing less than impressive.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Chris. But I just as someone who grew up with one as their dog, they're a member of our family as well. But they really are incredibly. They're so well trained, and they really want to do. They're workers. They live to work, and you can clearly see it by. I believe this is probably a Belgian Malinois, but they are absolutely trained to work, and that is what they want to do.
We'll try come around here and maybe come up. If we can come up and maybe look through the front windshield, John, that might be another angle of see if we could see any more movement, any sign of movement whatsoever coming from that passenger seat. Because from my vantage point, I do not see any movement whatsoever. I think I see arms. I have not seen them move. But it's just a little bit too tough to tell. Obviously, the distance, we don't want to push in too close, and obviously the little bit of glare there as well, depending on the angle here. So they obviously have a much better view down there than we do. You can see it almost looks like, I'm trying to see, is that just more, I guess there's some more, are those bullet holes in the front? Yeah, more bullet holes in the front windshield. I didn't see those earlier. Yeah, but it looks like some of those shots went right through the rear windshield and ended up exiting through the front windshield. Those would be exit holes in that front windshield. So just more evidence of what a dramatic and violent scene transpired here, maybe about an hour ago.
It's been an incredible view there. We have breaking news in Vernon. I'm Ellen Leva along with David Ono. We've been watching this for about an hour or so. A passenger opens fire on police during a high-speed pursuit, and then the police return fire, hitting that gunman, and innocent drivers were nearby. But now we're watching the conclusion of this, and it has been like this for the last 45 minutes.
Incredibly shocking to watch. First the pursuit, then the gunfire, and gunfire going on with innocent bystanders nearby, back and forth. We did see one person get out of the vehicle, a female who appeared to be driving this car. She did have blood on her. She may have been shot, but she did give up right after the initial shooting. The other person, the suspect, the man seen leaning out of the car with a large handgun, he is still inside that vehicle. You're watching things set up. We have 3 Bearcats from the LA Special Enforcement Bureau, LA County Sheriff's Special Enforcement Bureau that are set up there, 2 right by the car in question, 1 behind it there. They brought in a robot. We've seen the canine units. We've seen a drone being set up as well. It's an incredible scene as they try to figure out what the next approach will be when it comes to this murder suspect that is inside the vehicle. Clearly he has been hit. Clearly he is injured. We don't even know if he's alive yet. This is something that we have been on for quite some time. Chris Christie, Air 7 HD, has been over it as well, watching this shocking scene. Chris, it's 4 o'clock. People are just tuning in. Give us a lowdown of what this experience has been for you.
As you mentioned, David, nothing less than is still in the passenger seat, not moving from our vantage point. Does appear to be severely injured. We've seen a flashbang go off to see if he reacts to that. We've seen canine units standing by, as you mentioned, David, and we saw just a few moments ago, and now a bomb squad.
And it's been like this for the last 45 minutes.
Incredibly shocking to watch. First, give us a lowdown of what this experience has been for you.
As you mentioned, David, nothing less than a dramatic response here from law enforcement, a large response, and well warranted at that. Following a dramatic shootout this afternoon, a number of resources now in place from different agencies, including Downey Police Department, the LA County Sheriff's Department, Bell Gardens, all out here, and the SEB units from the County Sheriff's Office now on scene here with that Toyota Prius clearly boxed in after the female driver of that pursuit vehicle gave herself up. Shots were fired during this pursuit, and it does appear that the passenger is still in the passenger seat, not moving from our vantage point. Does appear to be severely injured. We've seen a flashbang go off to see if he reacts to that. We've seen canine units standing by, as you mentioned, David, and we saw just a few moments ago, and now a bomb squad robot approaching the car with a camera on board to get another glimpse from a different angle, in addition to the 2 SEB Bearcat tanks that are literally right up against the passenger side and the front hood of that Toyota Prius. So lots of law enforcement and a lot of law enforcement skills being put to the test here this afternoon. We can now tell you with a little bit more confidence, without 100% confirmation, they are looking very, very closely at the distinct possibility and now probability that this is directly related to a liquor store robbery, David and Colleen, that happened just a few nights ago. Remember Tuesday night, that ASL liquor store on Paramount Boulevard in Downey, where the owner was shot and killed. Well, the description of that suspect and now the surveillance video that we're able to show you does appear to match pretty closely to the suspect who's believed to be in that Toyota Prius. So detectives from that case are on scene down here and trying to connect those dots and confirm whether this is indeed the same murder suspect from Tuesday night.
Should know very momentarily because we're watching this robot inch right up next to that car.
That murder is something that we had been on top of for the last few days. It was shocking in itself because at first we told you about the murder. We showed you surveillance video on the first day of the murder. We showed you surveillance video that you just showed, Chris, of the gunman running in from the street level. There it is. He runs in. He's in there for a matter of seconds. If you continue to watch that video, there was a man that walked out of the convenience store clearly heard the gunshots and went running. He left. He got out safely, but the clerk was killed. It took a matter of seconds. And then that's the next day is when we got the surveillance video up close. We showed his face. There it is. We showed the long handgun, and it reminded us all of how fragile life is, how this guy just wandered in there in a matter of seconds. He took somebody's life. It was an absolutely shocking thing to witness. And now it makes all the sense in the world when we see this pursuit going on.
Right, and Downey police after him, and we saw the shots fired outside of that car, and you can see this screen grab right there, but also we have one from today, him hanging outside the door.
So take a look at that gun, the unusually long barrel, and it appears that he is using the same gun today. So that was the gun. It was most notable, besides the fact you could see his face clear as day, but was most notable about this particular murder was the size of his gun, and then we saw him leaning out the window with a huge handgun, and it's a likelihood it's the same one.
And hopefully we'll be able to show you that screenshot from a little earlier today, because he did just hang out the window, shots fired at the officers, and disregard for everybody around there. There were people just driving right next to him.
We're going to have that soon. A lot more to talk about. Let's go to Miriam Hernandez, who is on the ground near where this is all going on. Miriam?
That's right. It's right there standing by.
Yeah, it's kind of staged a little bit further away. I wonder if it has a good, because it has a camera that could push way in, so maybe it has a better angle right there.
And we say the K9, he was on standby, or she was on standby, and that's kind of stand down for now. You see it?
The K9 is right there.
Oh, okay.
Right, you see the guy moving?
Oh, that's the long
backwards?
leash that he's holding.
Yeah, he's holding that long leash.
Okay.
Yeah, that leash right there, that's the K9's leash.
Okay.
So they're staged and ready to go as well. All these guys, and there's the blue gloves that Bill Thomas was talking about. These guys are prepared to administer aid when they get there, when given the green light to move in, but they're also capable of being tactical officers as well. There's a K9.
Oh, maybe they'll bring that in.
And he is standing out there.
Yeah, David, I think you're going to see a move right about now. It seems like they formulated this. They're very confident the suspect is incapacitated, and they are forming a team to go in.
Yeah, it looks that way.
You're right.
7HE just keeps the shot. We're going to see that quickly.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. It does seem like the physicality has changed a little bit. The K9 unit does seem to be out there kind of isolated. They seem like they're ready to go. You'll notice the group of officers here we go. Yeah, it does seem like, Bruce, that they're about to go in.
Yeah, because you saw the other officers stand back and just let these special units do their thing.
Well, I wonder if they're going to kind of get in their stack and kind of go in as well, maybe using the Bearcat as cover. But let's see what happens. It does almost appear that the K9 might be the first in, but we don't know yet. It's just speculation.
Yeah, I think they're going to deploy the K9 first to see if they get a reaction to possibly, the Malamos are such strong dogs that they can probably pull the suspect out of the vehicle, and then somebody's will be there to take him or her into custody or render aid.
All right, you're right. They're going to use that Bearcat as a protection.
Yeah, the Bearcat's moving up slowly. The guys are behind it, using it for cover, taking a great deal of precaution. And keep in mind, the Bearcat's up front. There are people looking directly into the car in case something happens. So there's direct communication between these guys in the front Bearcats and the guys in the Bearcats back here, and they are going to slowly move up. The K9 is ready to go.
And that man on the roof there, you see him at the ready as well.
In the turret, he is covered, ready to go. He's going to have a good vantage point there. Man, the dog is really going now. He's ready to go.
There we go.
They let him go. Let him look.
Wow.
Okay, brace yourself, though. Okay, he's pulling on the suspect. The suspect is not moving.
They are strong.
They're very, very strong.
Look at that.
Very strong dogs.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, he's pulling the suspect. We may have to pull the shot out just in case. If we do, we're not doing it because, we want to frustrate you. We just don't want you to see something you shouldn't see. So we're going to be very careful about the shot. Right now, the dog is inside the cockpit of the car, pulling on the suspect. You could see movement from the suspect and the dog pulling the suspect, but so far, no retaliation from the suspect at all, which is a sign that the suspect may very well be incapacitated or even dead.
And they're moving in on the passenger side there right now.
With the shield.
With the shield.
Looking inside. The dog is pulled out. The long leash. He did his job. His job is over with. And now they're pulling the suspect out. All right. Clearly, the suspect is not a threat. He may, okay, be careful here. He may not even be alive. But the suspect is now out. Okay. We're going to pull the shot out a little bit. So now the suspect is out behind the Prius. It is in front of the back Bearcat. And then this is the point where they will begin to administer aid. You notice some of the officers or the deputies are looking inside the car. They've checked the car. There's nobody else in it. And now it's time to deliver aid. They'll probably pull the ambulance up now. Bruce, what did you think about that?
They were using the dog as a distractionary device while the officers approached from the other side, but also wanted to see if the suspect had a reaction. In this case, I don't think he had a reaction. I think the canine was tugging on his arm and possibly biting him, and there was no reaction. And when the officers approached and they made entry into the cockpit of the vehicle, I hate to say it, but I think the suspect might be dead.
Yeah, and okay, so this is interesting, Bruce. You notice the officers, the deputies all standing around the suspect. They don't have to do that, but is this intentionally to kind of, out of respect, so the cameras now aren't on them, just to keep them covered a little bit?
To some degree, but also you got to remember it is an active crime scene, so this area has to be processed.
Okay.
Interesting how they use the dog as a distraction, and that
probably a dual purpose. That was right. And you did notice while we were watching that dog do his thing, they were coming up on the other side of the vehicle, and
wow.
All right, so the suspect is on the ground. That's where that group of officers, deputies, are gathered around the suspect right now. They're administering aid. I imagine at this point maybe they'll bring in the ambulance, but I'm not sure, because if he's deceased and there's nothing they can do, then they will probably handle it a little bit differently.
Because he was shot and bleeding, and that was quite a long time to be in that car.
All right, so this...
Yeah, they're going to have burn and fire respond further out, up into the operational area now and render aid.
All right, so there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered. Who is this guy? Is he the one that was seen in that convenience store with a giant handgun that killed the clerk inside the store? The one that we saw run in and run out quickly? Look at on the right-hand side. The suspect on the far right, that was from a convenience store earlier this week where he shot and killed somebody. And then the middle shot is a still of him holding the handgun out from this particular pursuit. And the whole thought was Downey PD was trying to pull this Prius over because they felt that the suspect inside this car was the same person that you see on the far right-hand side.
It does appear that is the same gun.
Yeah. It's pretty clear. So that suspect may be deceased. Nevertheless, he is out of the vehicle. He is on the ground, and they're administering aid. This part of this pursuit is coming to an end, and now there he is. Okay, so we want you to watch this closely. That's the suspect. He runs up to the convenience store, runs inside. That's from the camera inside the convenience store. There he is, just casually walking in, pulls out the gun, and he starts firing. He didn't steal anything. He just ran in, shot the clerk, and ran out. And clearly that was his intention.
And a witness said that perhaps he was dropped off, picked up, and that could have been that driver today.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Speculation on whether or not that person that was driving the vehicle is the same person that might be involved with the other crime. We just don't know. That's one of the many questions here.
Miraculously, though, no officers were injured, thankfully, and also the civilians that were so close to that shooting right during the pursuit. Directly behind the shooter was a civilian car that had the wherewithal in that moment of panic to back away.
Yeah.
And you likely can see it, from Air 7 much more clearly. We'll see whether they have a wounded person that they will be transporting, or whether, in fact, this person has succumbed to his injuries.
And Miriam, thank you very much.
Back to you, Ellen and David. Yeah,
quite a day, and to see the culmination at the very end with the canine going in to distract that suspect to see if he'll flinch, and then the special agents coming in from the other side. It was quite a sight to see that.
Yeah. It's been a dramatic afternoon here in Southern California because of the terrible violence that so many civilians found themselves in the middle of, and police officers as well, deputies as well, when it comes to this very violent suspect. The way he so coldly killed somebody earlier this week, if that is in fact the same suspect, to the way he hung out the window of the passenger side, just blatantly firing at officers. So they had no choice but to return fire. And this is a culmination of all of that violence. It appears that the suspect is clearly down. We don't know if he's alive. The woman driving the vehicle is in custody. She looked to be injured, but she is alive. We don't know. We don't think anybody else was hurt in all of this, but it certainly came close in a lot of ways.
Watching these paramedics, and we'll have to see if there's some urgency there or what's going to transpire here.
Our producer thinks that they've spotted an IV, so they've hooked up an IV up to the suspect. So they're doing what they can to keep him alive. You see the SWAT officer holding the IV. He is standing right in. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. The deputy with his back to the Bearcat, the furthest Bearcat. He's the one just bending over right now. Yeah, he's holding an IV in his hand. So they're rendering aid. So he's alive. And they're doing what they can. We don't want to show you too much. Clearly there's red down there. The suspect is bleeding. But they are rendering aid, and he might have a pulse, so they're doing their best to keep him alive.
And you see those the special blue gloves, and they're trained paramedics as well. So some of them are especially cross-trained.
So apparently they're going to put him on a backboard as they hold this IV. They're going to transport this suspect as best they can. These paramedics do seem to be working with some urgency now, moving around the suspect, getting him strapped in. SCB members are there as well, helping out. So there he goes. We're going to be careful here. You see him shirtless. He also has a bandage around his head. Perhaps he has a head injury, a head wound from the shooting. There is some red there. They're about to transfer him into the ambulance, but he is on the gurney right now, strapping him into the gurney. Boy, is that blood on the ground?
I can't tell.
That is something. Clearly he's been hit and badly injured, but he's alive. At least by that shot right there, we know that the suspect is alive. They have oxygen going into him, an IV going into him. He is wrapped up. They cut into his pants. They took his shirt off. They're doing what they can on this site, and then Vernon Fire is going to transport him to the hospital. Well, they try to keep him alive. There's so many questions revolving him, who he is, why did he do what he did, if that is in fact him on that video from earlier in the week.
And this vast crime scene, because the shooting happened away from this, and then it'll be interesting to see, how long it'll take for them to clear that area.
Miriam said that there will be some kind of a debrief for the news folks that are out there right now. We don't know if it's from Vernon PD, from Downey PD, or the Sheriff's Department, but hopefully somebody will answer whatever they can say at this point, because as we often know with these investigations, there's little information up front. It takes days and weeks for that information to finally become available. But perhaps they can tell us some of their motivations on why they did what right now. They obviously aren't going to be able to tell us a whole lot about the murder investigation from earlier this week. Okay, so we're going to continue to watch this as paramedics render aid and transport that suspect to the hospital. But he is alive. Remarkably, he is alive. As you watch that video and see the gunfire going through that car, I think it's rather remarkable, but the driver was able to get out of the car and basically walk to safety and be taken into custody. But the suspect being alive still is pretty incredible as well.
And Miriam Hernandez has been near that scene. She's told to back away a little bit, but you have more information, Miriam? Or
Yes, no real information, just observations. We see that ambulance pulling up just a little bit. We're not sure where that ambulance may be headed, but the closest trauma center is likely County USC. I understand from the shot that you had from Air 7, you could see the suspect being treated by paramedics and deputies also assisting with an IV and making sure that he was secured on the gurney before they lifted him into that ambulance. It's now heading away from the scene. We are not sure yet when we will be getting more details about how this all unfolded. The sheriff's deputy I just talked to said that they might be dispensing the information from Downey, where all this originated, but we will try and get as much information from the scene as we can. We now see that armored vehicle leaving the scene as well. This scene is being cleared, so we expect that we'll be able at least to approach some of the vehicles that are still there, some of the personnel that is still there, and find out what we can about just what happened and the process they went through in order to resolve this matter with no further injury to anybody else, to civilians or to any police personnel.